She's here. Can you not see me, Andrew?
No.
Oh, I am here. I
Well, you must be there. Wait a minute.
Hello, everyone. We're live streaming now. So if everybody could put their microphones on mute unless you are speaking. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sean. Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies, we're slightly late starting our cabinet meeting this afternoon. So good to see so many members and officers joining us today. And of course, I'm sure members of the public are watching as well. First of all, before we go on to the agenda, I would normally at this point be welcoming people to speak in either English or Welsh or both. Unfortunately, our technology has dropped out on us slightly this afternoon, and our translation is unable to take place. So we'll have to speak through the medium of English this afternoon, which again I apologise for, and we'll continue to look at that. It has been working really well for us actually through Zoom over the last few months. I think this is the first time it hasn't quite worked, so we'll have a look at that. So onto the agenda. First item there is apologies for absence. Sian, have we got any apologies for absence?
I have an apology from Councillor Goronwy Edwards.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. So I'll just start this off. I need to declare an interest on item 18.2, which is the Bryn Mawr Caravan Park Conway, the lease variation. I know the leaseholders in the personal capacity, so for that item I'll be standing, or coming off the Zoom call, I'll be standing out to this meeting. Any other declarations of interest? We've got Councillor Cheryl and then Julie. Cheryl?
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, I will be declaring an interest in the Tanland Community Centre, as that is in my ward, and I was on the committee and also in the third sector report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Julie?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the same as you, item 18.2, Bryn Mawr Caravan Park. I also am friendly with the leaseholder, so I will be leading the meeting.
Great. All right, thank you. So just to be clear, for the final agenda item, Councillor Cheryl will chair the cabinet meeting, because as Sean said at the start, the deputy leader, Councillor Goronwy, has sent his apologies today. So we'll deal with that when we get there. Okay, item 3 is urgent matters, and we do have an urgent matter, but it's in item 16 of the agenda, and the paperwork is available for members, and that was sent subsequently as well, so that it will be picked up at item agenda 16, which is the procurement of the integrated responsive transport service, which sounds exciting. Item 4 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which is pages 4 through to 8. Could somebody approve those minutes for me, please? That's Councillor Charlie, seconded by Emma. All cabinet in favour of those minutes at an accurate record? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5 is a matter referred to the cabinet by the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee for consideration, which is a notice of motion entitled "Bang Out of Order." This is pages 9 through to 12 of your agenda pack. And Councillor Charlie, I think you're going to talk us through this one, so I'll hand over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure we'll all agree it seems like a lifetime ago, but back in January, I was asked by the RSPCA to put forward 2 motions. One was to discourage the sale of using live animals as prizes in fun fairs and council grounds, which was accepted. The second one was this bang out of order motion. The council at the time thought they'd like some more information, so they asked it to come back to scrutiny, which it did in March. And a very nice chap called Lewis Roberts, who's an RSPCA representative, came and spoke to the committee. We just wanted to give some reassurance about what it was. Essentially, it's about being a good neighbour. We're not looking to be killjoys and spoil people's funds. We're just asking for people to be considerate. So if it's a large display, to advertise it, which again, I'm not aware of any large displays that don't by their very nature. And also, if you've got people, neighbours who've got pets or young children who are worried about it, just give that some consideration. So it was a really good discussion. The information is in front of you, but by the end, the recommendation of Cabinet here is that we accept the notion of motion. Yeah. So if any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. And as you said, this was discussed at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee back in March. Had a good airing there. Is there any comments or questions from any Cabinet members? Councillor Gregg, I see your hand there. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Lead. I'd like to second Charlie's proposal. I think it's a really good idea. Having been in charge of running the fireworks display in Llandudno for a number of years, I know that the benefits of a big organised display as opposed to many little ones are very great, and normally gives much more safety and security to animals and vulnerable people as well. The one thing I'm minded of, obviously there won't be any large fireworks displays this year by the looks of it because of the COVID-19 regulations. So it could be a larger issue county-wide, and it's something we really do need to get some information out on. That's why I'm really pleased to second this this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Anybody else want to comment or any questions on the notice of motion? Councillor Sherrill?
Thank you, Leader. Just to echo Councillor Gregg's comments about vulnerable people, it causes a huge amount of distress to both babies and vulnerable people, and of course our beloved pets. So I really welcome this. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Anything else from anybody? No. Okay, so the notice of motion is there before us. The recommendation is that it's support the notice of motion and respect the RSPCA campaign Bang Out of Order, and encourage the Welsh Government to recommend noise restrictions to manufacturers on the maximum level of decibels fireworks available that the public can reach. That's been proposed by Councillor Charlie, seconded by Greg. All in favour, please. That's great. Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, next item is item 6, announcements by me. So just a couple of items here. So first of all, want to say a big thank you to our schools who have started to reopen more fully now, or fully as of next week, across Conway. Number of schools are open this week for learners coming on a phased basis. Perhaps should declare an interest. My own children have attended school this week and will continue to, and I'm very pleased that they are in a school and getting educated. So yeah, thank you to our schools for the measures that they're putting in place to make their sites as safe as possible. As we have seen in the news though, across Wales, schools are experiencing, not necessarily outbreaks of COVID-19, but certainly people who tested positive for COVID-19. So I know our teams in our education department are prepared, managing and working really closely with our schools if anything similar happens to our schools here in Conway. Again, thank you to our schools, to parents as well, for having the faith and trust in our schools, for bringing their children back in. And we're really looking forward to what's hopefully going to be a much better year ahead than what many learners experienced last year. Next piece from me is really just to acknowledge that here in Wales there is a county council which is, as of this evening, 6 o'clock this evening, going to be under a local lockdown, and that's down in Caerphilly. And just to provide some assurance to members and to our residents alike that, of course, we here in Conway are looking closely at the data and keep an eye on what the numbers look like in terms of COVID-19 cases, working closely with Public Health Wales, and then ultimately we expect Welsh Government to be working closely with us because they are decision makers when it comes to any local lockdowns. We are all, I'm sure, really keen to not see a local lockdown, but if it is a need to, if the numbers dictate that and it's for the improved safety of our community, that's certainly something we'll have to look at with Welsh Government and Public Health Wales as well. but I'm sure our support is with Caerphilly at the moment, and hoping that they move through that process as quickly as possible to make the area of Wales as safe as possible. So I've spoken with the leader of Caerphilly Council and passed on our support, and I say best wishes that things improve there as quickly as possible. I'm not sure if Councillor Austin's managed to jump onto the meeting today, but it's worth me at our first cabinet meeting since Councillor Austin has been elected the group leader of the Plaid Cymru group here in Conwy, to pass on my congratulations as leader of the council and on behalf of the cabinet as well. So looking forward to working alongside Councillor Austin over the coming months. And yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job yesterday as well as chairing his straight into the deep end, chairing Finance and Resource Scrutiny Committee. Final item from me is a reminder for all members, we do have the council AGM later on this month, and arrangements are in place and being managed to make that as a smoother process, a smoother meeting as possible, and to allow as many members to join that meeting in the best way possible as well. So members will continue to receive updates as to how the AGM will work later on this month. So that's all from me. Next item is announcements from the Chief Executive. I'm not sure if you have anything else you want to add to that at all.
I suppose just a slight addition to a couple of things you covered. Yeah, the schools reopening, huge amount of effort's gone into that. There will be tweaking of plans as probably as we speak. And I do acknowledge that some of you cabinet members and other members have children you've been also caring for over the past 6 months while carrying on with your council work. Similarly, I know lots of my council colleagues as officers have been juggling that tricky thing of homeschooling, caring for their children and working. So a couple of things. One is to thank them especially, because I know it's been really tough, but also they can look forward to a bit of respite until the fortnight half term in October. And similarly, you mentioned the local lockdown in Caerphilly. Certainly, as an authority, we sympathise and empathise with what's going on there. I don't want Conwy to be in a similar situation, and that's why my message to my colleagues is let's carry on doing what we've been doing so successfully to control the virus as best we can. And I think as much inconvenience and sort of relative sacrifice that we can endure now can only help us avoid an escalation in the incidence of the virus, and therefore avoid the need for any local provisions. But as you say, we're keeping a very close eye on the data and on local intelligence as well. I will also just mention one other thing, Leader, that you didn't or couldn't mention because of an interest that you and Councillor Mark have. So I'll just mention it briefly, so you don't need to declare any sort of interest. But as you're both trustees of Greer Castle, I know you don't want to get your council work involved with or confused with that initiative. But as a council, we're looking forward to welcoming Ant, Dec, and some celebrities to Abergele over the course of the next couple of months for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. It'll be a great economic boost for the area. And I know we keep saying putting Conwy on the map. I think everybody knows where Conwy is now, but it can only help our profile. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. Keeping the I'm a Celebrity comments going. I know Mr. Kirkham likes to have some quotes from that TV programme every now and then in his presentations. So I worry the number of those that might come out over the coming months from his presentations, but also look forward to it as well. Let's move on. Item number 8 is to review the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. This is pages 11 through to 53. The full programme is there. Is there any comments from any cabinet members at all in relation to that forward work programme? No, so we accept that. Somebody just proposed that we accept that forward work programme, please. That's Councillor Chris, and as Mark seconded as well. So all in favour of that, please, to accept the forward work programme. Thank you very much. Excellent stuff. Okay, item 9 is Councillor Julie's portfolio in education, and it's the Mutual Investment Model 21st Century Schools Welsh Education Partnership, and it's a strategic partnering agreement. So if I hand over to you, please, Julie. I know we have some guests on the call as well. You may want to introduce, but I'll leave it with you. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, another opportunity to talk about something really exciting for Conway. The building of a number of new schools under the 21st Century Schools programme. As Councillor Sam has said, we are joined by 2 people from Bevan Britton, Victoria Barman and Rosemary Jago. So if we've got any questions at the end, then they're here to address those for us. Okay, so if you go to page 54, I'll go through a little summary of what it is. And then I'll go through the recommendations for you. So I have to accept that I have to wear glasses now. It's weird getting used to it, but okay. So the Welsh Government has been procuring a private sector partner to work with it on the delivery of the education and community facilities in Wales under the Mutual Investment Model, which we'll refer to as MIM, 21st Century Schools Programme. Meridium has now been selected as the private sector partner. Meridium is a large multinational company with offices in Europe, Africa, the Middle East and North America. Meridium and a subsidiary of the Development Bank of Wales, known as the WGCO, will be required to form a company called WEPCO, Welsh Education and Partnership Co., which will deliver infrastructure services to the participants in Wales. The participants to the arrangements will be a number of local authorities and further education institutions. This report follows the report to Cabinet that came on the 14th of January, which we had a discussion then, and Council on the 23rd of January, where members agreed that extensions and refurbishment projects would be funded through the traditional capital finance, and all new build projects would be funded through the MIM. The purpose of this report, therefore, is to seek Cabinet's approval to enter into a strategic partnering agreement with WEPCO to facilitate the delivery of education and community facilities using the MIM model. Cabinet is also asked to approve the appointment of the Director of Social Care and Education as a participant representative to sit on the Strategic Partnering Board, which will meet about 3 times a year. And I know that Jenny has said that she's happy to do that and look at the strategic level of this. I'll go through the recommendations with you. As was said, this came through scrutiny this morning, and it also has a 600-page legal document that accompanies this, which I don't intend to go anywhere near, but we'll go through these bits, and then if you've got further questions, you can ask. So recommendations you'll find on page 55. 1.5. So it is recommended to Cabinet that A, notes the appointment of Meridium as the following the competitive dialogue procedure under the Public Contracts Regulations 2015 as outlined in this report. B, approves the execution, delivery and performance of a strategic partnering agreement with WEPCO to facilitate the delivery of a range of infrastructure services and the delivery of education and community facilities. C, approves the strategic partnering agreement at Appendix 1 of this report and summarised in paragraphs 3.5 to 3.15 of this report so as to give effective recommendation. B, subject to recommendation D below. D being gives delegated authority to the Strategic Director of Social Care and Education after consultation with the Head of Law and Governments and the portfolio holder for education to 1, approve the final terms of the Strategic Partnering Agreement included in any amendments to the Strategic Partnering Agreement as may be necessary for the reasons included but not limited to finalising any outstanding areas, and 2, to approve any further deeds and documents which are ancillary to the strategic partnering agreement. He notes that the strategic partnering agreement shall be executed as a deed and attested in accordance with the Article 13.05 of the Constitution, and F, approves the appointment of the Director of Social Care and Education as participant representative to sit on the Strategic Partnering Board. Sorry, that was quite lengthy. In terms of scrutiny this morning, positive response to it. The only items that were raised really was around the want or hope that we use local phones wherever possible in the building of the provision of schools and community buildings. But if anyone has any further questions, like I say, I would hand you over to, we've also got Wyn Jones on the call, and as I say, Victoria Barman and Rosemary Jago.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Julie. Well done for getting through the recommendations. So any questions initially for Julie or comments at all? Councillor Emma.
Thank you, Leader. It's not a technical question, it's just more about the scrutiny aspect. With regards to the strategic partnering board that meets, will, following any of those meetings, a report come back via education scrutiny? Has that been discussed or decided?
I'll probably ask Jenny whether she wants to come in there, as Jenny will be the person that sits on the board. She might have more of an idea.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks for your question, Councillor Emma. Yeah, certainly it's a little bit of finding our feet, really. We're not sure quite what to expect at the strategic board meetings, and it might be that I decide it might not be for me and it might be for someone else in education, but certainly I will see how it goes and definitely appraise and brief you of the contents of those meetings, and if necessary, you know, if we need to make some decisions based on that, we can bring that back through to scrutiny as well.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Emma, happy with that? Great, thank you very much. Any comments at all? Questions? I can't see any hands going up, either virtually or in reality. So let's just not forget, this is a really important part of children's education for decades to come, for generations. So it's really exciting to see that this come forward here today. There's number of steps to work through. This is one of those significant steps in seeing these buildings come to fruition. So thank you for everybody who's been working through this. Especially from the legal side as well. Not always particularly exciting. I'm sure my chief executive would disagree, but it's really important to get these things aligned correctly. Otherwise, we're never going to get these things sorted out. So there's no more comments or questions. We've had Councillor Julie wanting to propose recommendations in there. Is that, Julie, with the comments from scrutiny about using local trades and businesses where possible? Is that did they have that as an official line?
It's already in the legal jargon. I hope you don't mind me using that term, Rosemary, but Rosemary made it clear to us this morning that that actually forms part of what's there. I don't know if you want Rosemary to kind of comment.
Yeah. Would it be to bring you on? Can I bring you on first? All right. And then hand over to you. You on first.
I was going to disagree with you about the interest in of these massive legal documents, Councillor Sam. Just generally, just wanted to say this is a really exciting, it's a really important step in what's going to be a really exciting development for our schools. So thanks to Wyn in particular for guiding us through this. I know there's been lots of people involved, but I know he's had this close to his heart, and will do for years to come, I'm sure. But I just wanted to not let the moment pass without acknowledging that.
Great, thanks, Johan. And then Rosemary, just point around local contracts, trade. Do you want to comment on that briefly?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I can confirm that the actual detail in the strategic partnering agreement means that essentially you would be fully part of the tender process for the selection of the individual contractors on a project by project basis going forward, and some specific KPIs addressed to community benefits as well that you can decide at the time when projects go through, specifically in relation to your vision, your goals, your community benefits that you'd want to see. So you'll be absolutely fully part of that process, and that is enshrined in the detail of the legal documentation preserved for as a mechanism essentially to go forward for you.
Great, thank you. So it's already within there, so we don't need to make that as an additional specific. We just need to acknowledge and know that it's in there. So that really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Just put us back on mute, please. We get a bit of feedback. There we are. Lovely, thank you. So we've had a proposal, and let's have a seconder for those recommendations, then, please. That's Councillor Emma's hand up first. Thank you very much. And all in favour, then, please, to move the recommendations. That's everybody. Thank you very much. Good stuff. Item 10, housing and regulatory portfolios. Councillor Charlie. We've got the projects approvals for the Colwyn Bay Housing Renewal Scheme, pages 91 through to 102. So Charlie, if I could hand over to you to present this one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Here essentially to seek approval for match funding in the sum of £175,475. It's enabled us to access Welsh Targeted Regeneration Investment Funding, which is used for, well, this particular project is the Colwyn Bay Housing Renewal Area. We've completed phase 1 that was approved and completed between 2019-21. This is phases 2 and 3. The fund is there. It recognises the role of good housing and regeneration, and it also really helps to alleviate fuel poverty and improve our environmental aspects in terms of carbon. The whole works around insulation, better windows, better boilers, that sort of stuff. So the initial phases have been really, really successful. The scheme was approved by Welsh Government in 2017. They targeted 4 areas across North Wales: Rhyl, Wrexham, Bangor and Colwyn Bay. But as it says in the report, there will be the opportunity in future years for other areas within the county to access this funding, which I think is important, because I'm sure we can all think of other areas that would benefit. Pages 93, 94 gives you the actual area in Colwyn Bay, the actual regeneration area. 94 is the specific area that we're proposing to do in the next phase. We've had some really good consultation from page 95, 5.1 onwards. Good local member support from Councillor Chris. Councillor Abdul had to declare an interest because his business is in the area, but there's been a consultation with the Baylife Strategic Board and Councillor Nigel as Chair of Economy in Place. If we go down to page 96, it confirms where all the money's coming from. The key thing is we're looking to get about £145 million from Welsh Government to improve some of our poorest housing stock. So I'd be really keen that we support this. Just go back to the actual recommendation. Just give me 1 second. So the recommendation 2.1 is the Cabinet approve an amount of £175,475 from the project's match funding provision to provide match fund to the Welsh Government targeted regeneration investment funding already allocated to the project. So I'm happy to take some questions, and then I'm happy to propose that.
Great, thanks, Charlie. Let's go to Councillor Cheryl first, then Louise. Cheryl.
Thanks, Leader. Thank you very much for that indeed, Charlie. I really welcome this investment because it's improving the quality of housing for one of our most deprived wards in Conway, Glyn too. And I really, really welcome this for the residents there. And I'm sure those of us who've been here since 2008 will recognise that Councillor Bob will be cheering today that this is being done. So thank you very much. And I'd like to second your proposal. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. So that's seconded. I've got Louise there wants to comment as well. Louise.
I suppose I have a question for Charlie, which will then lead on to what I was going to say. The majority of housing within this area, is it owner-occupier or is it sort of landlord-tenant in terms of buy-to-lets? Do you know the split?
I don't have the exact figures to hand, but a lot of them are rental properties. But just quickly, there's a big issue now with EPCs. They have to be above an E for it to be rented out. So not only are we improving the stock, we're actually retaining tenancies, and we obviously have 19% of our residents in private rented accommodation. So it's another real benefit from that, Louise.
And that's exactly what I was going to go on to say, is that the EPC has to be an E if you want to rent to a tenant. And there is talk about in years to come going up to a D, which is a really big jump. And landlords are going to struggle to I think, you can get exemptions, but you have to spend about £3,500 on the property minimum, to make sure you can try and get it up to spec. And obviously we need private landlords to upgrade their properties and make them available for tenants. So this is really good news.
Great, thank you. Councillor Chris Hughes wants to come in as well. Chris?
Thanks, Chair. I welcome this report. As you'll know, I was involved in trying to bring the original, some of the original housing renewal projects into Colwyn Bay, and also continuing the housing renewal project in 2004. So it's a welcome. I really welcome this. It's to see the, hopefully over the next couple of years, the completion of what has ended up being close to a 20-year project. We certainly didn't envisage it taking that long at the beginning, but with resources and various things, it has. But I know that the people of Colwyn Bay are enormously grateful for the work that successive administrations have done in addressing what was a major housing problem within the town.
Thanks, Chris. That's really appreciated, and you're right to acknowledge the amount of time and effort in terms of years and millions of pounds being invested into Colwyn Bay, and we are seeing the town move in the right direction, certainly. So completely agree with that. And as you said, hopefully this starts to bring some of that work to some sort of closure at some point, and then we can make sure we're investing in all areas. So yeah, thank you for that. So it's been proposed and it's been seconded that the recommendations are supported, and as Councillor Charlie mentioned, the recommendation is that we approve the amount of £175,000 from the project match funding provision to provide match funding for the regeneration investment funding. So we've had a proposal and seconder. All in favour of that then, please? Great, can't see any dissension, so thank you for that. Let's move on. Item 11 is the Arts, Heritage and Culture Portfolio, which is Councillor Mark, and it's the Welsh Public Library Standards Annual Return 1819 and Welsh Government Assessment. So over to you, please, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So the report is on pages 103 to 143. And as the leader has said, it's with regards to the Welsh Public Library Standards. It's the annual return for 2018 to 19 and the Welsh Government Assessment. So local authorities have a statutory duty to provide a comprehensive and efficient library service for all persons under the Libraries and Museums Act. In Wales, Welsh Government monitors that compliance through the Welsh Public Library Standards. This report was originally scheduled for March of this year, but as we all know, the pandemic overtook matters. So the purpose of bringing this to Cabinet is that Welsh Government requires the annual return to be approved by the authority. The return for 2018 to 19 is attached in Appendix 1. This is the second year of the 6th quality framework of the Welsh Public Library Standards, and it's entitled Connected and Ambitious Libraries. The framework has recently been extended to 2021, but we don't know how that will change in light of the pandemic. So Conway Library Service has continued to perform very well. As Welsh Government has noted, the effect of reduced resources is impacting on the service. Staff numbers have declined to below the target level, and these have impacted on performance including the emergency closure of both static libraries and mobile libraries when staff are not available. However, I was very pleased to note from the visitor surveys that customers continue to recognise the work done by our libraries, and I'd like to thank our library staff for delivering excellent customer service in spite of these reducing resources. So in terms of context, over the past decade, Conway has really been amazing. It's gone from being one of the weakest library services in Wales to now being one of the best. This is an immense credit to our team in culture and information. So I'd like to thank you again. So in terms of the national picture, in 2018 to 19, no service in any local authority in Wales met the standards in full. Only 4 services achieved 9 of the 10 indicators with the targets. Conway met 8 of the 10 in full and Park met 1. And only 2 authorities achieved 5 indicators with targets. No authority met the staffing target in full. So it's very important just to place this report into that national context. So I'd also like to illustrate the importance of the service by drawing your attention to the case studies. There's 3 within the report. These show the positive impact that using the library service has on people's lives and illustrating that preventative nature of the service and how it works with others. So I just wanted to go over the amazing work that's taken place in the last 6 months. The library staff have been at the front line of the response to the pandemic, and I would personally like to thank them all for their amazing achievements over the past 6 months. They began a phased reintroduction of library service provision during the summer. So this is going from everything being closed to starting to bring back the services for our residents. And it was the library's call and collect service that went live first on the 25th of June. This is available from all Conway libraries, and to date we've received 1,278 requests, which is pretty amazing. The home and mobile library service provides a facility for our more vulnerable and remote residents, and this is about delivering those books to customers around the whole of the county that can't get to any libraries. We've also made available recently access to public computers by appointment, so you can go to Abergele, Conway, Colwyn Bay, Llanrwst and Llandudno libraries, and we'll also be making it available at Cerrig-y-Drudion, Penrhyn Bay, Cymnal Bay, Llanfair Fechan and Penmaen Mawr community libraries, and we're really committed to ensuring a safe environment for everyone coming to those libraries. You can also make appointments at Abergele, Conway and Llanrwst area libraries to select books. So you go via our website and you can book a slot to have 45 minutes of browsing time, which is great. So I'm also very excited to report that the archive service is now opened, and this is in its new location at the Conway Culture Centre. This is the first time it's opened since the Culture Centre was completed because of the pandemic. That opened yesterday, and that's on an appointment only basis. I'll be going later this week to have a look through the archive, which I love to do. So just wanted to touch upon the other work that's gone on with the community support service. A lot of the staff in that service have been from the libraries and information and culture world, and they continue to offer remote inquiry services and delivering more remote digital opportunities. What I would like to highlight is that a lot of the community response team are actually volunteering, as the members of staff have returned to their substantive roles, and some have continued to register to be there should any emergency requests come through. So I'd just like to read out very quickly some comments from one of our staff volunteers. They said that the opportunity of being involved in the community support team has been amazing. Throughout the process has been professional, with the amount of information we have received to support our own welfare, right through to the way in which we engaged via the phone and then follow-up information. The team have been fantastic, and since the 1st of April, they've responded to just shy of 7,000 inquiries. and this is all to help our residents, so thank you. So returning to the recommendation in 2.1, the recommendation is that members fully consider the feedback given in the Welsh Government's assessment and approve the annual return for 2018 to 19. The Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered the report on the 19th of August and supported the recommendations. So the options are under 4.1 and 4.2. We either approve or propose amendments to the report. My recommendation is that we support the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'd also like to note to members that Anne Lloyd-Williams and Sharon Morgan from Culture and Information are also here on the call, so any questions can also be asked of them as well. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks Mark. That was a really comprehensive update, I appreciate that. And let's go to Councillor Chris first, and then we'll go from there. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you very much for Councillor Mark for that thorough review of that report and the annual return. I mean, this has really been a great pleasure reading and considering this. I know there were plenty of positive comments from scrutiny when it went to the scrutiny committee. I mean, it just shows how well our Conway service continues to develop and change as user needs develop. It's not a static situation with libraries and the information service. We've seen the next stage in the archive service that's been modernized, and it's so accessible, and it's in this fantastic new building at the Conway Cultural Centre. We've been for tours around there, and I just must commend it to people that don't normally go into such environments. It's a pleasure, and I'm sure more people will be doing research there than did in the old facilities. As Anne Lloyd-Williams and Sharon are here, I would just like to reiterate Mark's comments about the valuable work they've done with the Community Support Service. That's been a major frontline service that we've provided during the pandemic emergency, and the way they've dealt with the calls and sometimes very distressed and anxious people, constituents and residents of ours that have needed urgent help with food deliveries and prescription deliveries and everything. Their knowledge of, their customer service abilities has really been very valuable. So I would like to thank them and their team very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Just wanted to highlight one other.
Thanks, Chris.
So just one other item that I just wanted to highlight, particularly around the archive service. They have been successful in obtaining a grant from Welsh Government from the Cultural Resilience Fund, and this is for that next phase of modernisation and interaction with the public, which is around how we deliver our services in a digital way. So there will be a major digitisation programme happening over the winter, which will make the archives a lot more accessible. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark. I think there's a slight delay with my voice coming through here. Right, here we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just work through this here, and then I'm going to, so apologies if this is delayed, but I did have a question, and I'm hoping this will come through to you. It's in relation to the quality indicators. I'm just wondering how often, or if they do get reviewed from time to time. So one of the examples in there is so staff per capita as an example. I find that a slightly strange indicator of quality, because that isn't measuring quality, that's just measuring the number of people in a room. And I wonder, how do we feed that back in terms of an indicator of quality? Because if we're able to provide a quality service where it's perhaps more self-sufficient, where people are able to manage things themselves, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not about the number of staff, although that might be some sort of indicator. Just not convinced it's the such an always important part. So is that being fed back in terms of how those quality indicators put together, and can we challenge some of their assumptions around quality at all?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. A lot of the targets are aspirational by the kind of admission of Welsh Government. So most of them are unobtainable, and the figures that I went through show that no one had really kind of got all of these targets. So I think it's a great opportunity for it all to be reviewed, and it might be a recommendation that we do write to Welsh Government formally to say that we don't think that some of these are currently fit for purpose, and that it would be a time to review the standards. I don't know whether Anne Lloyd-Williams or Sharon Morgan have any other comments.
Hello. Hello. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Sharon actually sits on. If Sharon's there, I'm going to ask Sharon to come in, because Sharon actually sits on the Welsh Officers group that assesses these. I've been going to all well come back and need reviewing in view of the current climate. Sharon, do you want to say something?
Yes, the number of amendments that have been made have been very minor in the last few years, and I think as a profession we're recognising the changes, especially during this financial year now, will mean that our assessment needs to be in a different manner, and looking more at maybe the outcomes. However, they are also used to assess our public accountability measures as a profession, so it needs to be done in tandem with that process as well, so we can feed that back. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Still conscious of a delay when I'm speaking, so I think you're going to hear me in a second. So let's take that, and yeah, so I think it'd be useful to feed that through whatever process considers these sort of quality indicators. Obviously, this discussion's been had here today. Everyone wants really good outcomes for our residents and wants it to work really well, and the indicators should reflect that. Some of them seem a little bit, not sure what the word is, but don't seem to fit quite what it is we're trying to do. So that'd be really good to feed that back through. Okay, so let's go through to the recommendations on this now then. So Mark has proposed we accept the report as it's written, and any seconders for that, please? There we are, I can see Councillor Chris there then. And then all in favour, please, of that recommendation, please, that proposal, sorry. Okay, great, we're there, fantastic. So let's move on to the next agenda item 12, which is the Director of Social Care's Annual Report 2019-20. I'm going to just log out. I think the delay's at my side, so I'm struggling a little bit. So if I just I think it's Councillor Cheryl to start walking us through this, and I'll log back in and pick it up from there. So over to you, please, Cheryl. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Leader. And just passing comment on Mark's report before. A fantastic report, and how much the library service contributes to the well-being of our residents and the amazing work they've done over the last 6 months. It's all about an integrated service, and your service really stepped up. Fantastic. So just coming on to the Social Care Annual Report 1920, I'm presenting this on behalf of Councillor Louise and myself. It's on pages 144 to 229. And this report presents an outline of the contents of the Director of Social Care's Annual Report 1920 and the Care Inspectorate Wales Local Authority Performance Review of 1920. That letter's on page 225, I think. The annual report is a statutory obligation, and CIW provides annual feedback on inspections and performance evaluations and shows the progress we've made in implementing the recommendations. So I'll just touch on the highlights really. It focuses on the areas of new development and is aligned to the 6 national quality standards and wellbeing outcomes as defined in the Social Care and Wellbeing Act 2014. The highlights, we had a citizens survey and some 89% of people who responded said they were treated with dignity and respect. The brilliant work of our reablement service, our integrated service for children and young people with disabilities, particularly excellent service. Our work to break the national trend of rising numbers of looked after children, that's a particular area that's dear to my heart and something very much focused on. Our work with vulnerable people, developing a community hub. We're leading on the adults and children safeguarding forums, our support for carers, family support teams, our Kickstart project, supported housing for vulnerable care leavers. There are a couple of areas to work on, which are updating our recording templates, updating more carers assessments, which has always been an area that's underperformed because people don't see themselves as carers, and more end of placement reviews for care experienced children. This report is for noting, which is, I think, on page 145. Well, this is a very timely report highlighting everything we've been doing and continue to do, and as well as the truly outstanding emergency work that's been done during the last 6 months. On behalf of the members, we'd like to thank Jenny and all her staff. There's so much in this report to be very rightly proud of, and I welcome any observations, and Jenny's here to ask any detailed questions on it, but just thank you again to all our staff.
Great, thanks Cheryl. I think that's hopefully working at my side a little bit better now as well. So any comments or questions for Cheryl or for the team at all? Louise?
There we are, job done. Yes, and here's me a few years ago thinking that councils were just fixing potholes and collecting bins. Social services is such a wide array of different departments and different services to our residents, and I've held the portfolio post for over a year now, and it still amazes me the things that they get up to. Particularly last week, I was visiting the refurbished bungalow up at Townland Nurseries, which is going to be the sort of welfare centre for the disability teams to work with our residents up there and have a growing section with all the nurseries, while of course we're developing the site down at Bron and Nant. And I suppose what I've been most involved with is all the actual capital projects that we're looking at, because we appreciate that the residents need care, and future years we're going to get more of that. So I'm really excited about Ysgol Malgwen coming to its end. It looks great. I drove past it not so long ago. And then, as I say, we've got the Disability Respite Centre, and then we're getting some positive vibes from Dinneth Road from the Welsh Government. So it's such a comprehensive report, remembering that this is just up to April 2020. So next year's report, wow, it's going to be a groundbreaking one. So thank you very much to all the officers and onwards and upwards. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Louise. And then Yuan wants to come in as well. Yuan.
Thanks, Leader, and thanks to the Cabinet members, I think, for recognising and articulating their thanks to Jenny and her team. And from my perspective as Chief Executive, I'd just like to re-emphasise that I think we are really, really fortunate in having Jenny as Director of Social Services and having her two heads of service alongside her, Claire and Kate. It's a really tricky area to work in, and I think we're blessed, and this report just paints part of the picture. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, Jan. Thank you for that. Got Julie.
Yeah, just to echo the thanks, really, and certainly from an education perspective, I think seeing the way they've worked so closely together, social care and education, across the last 6 months, certainly. Obviously, it's the end of this report, only the last month, but how well they've kept a close eye on our more vulnerable students it's just brilliant. It's brilliant to see the team all working together, and I could probably list numerous things that have happened over the last few months, but it's exceptional. As Louise said, it will be really interesting to see next year's annual report, because the work that's gone on has been absolutely outstanding. So it was just a word of thanks from an education perspective as well.
Thanks, Julie. It's appreciated. Anything else from anybody at all? Lots of thanks on the comments. Not sure if everybody can see those in terms of live stream and things, but good to see those as well. I think one of my hopes through what's been difficult 6 months so far, and maybe difficult ahead as well in terms of the pandemic. One of my hopes out of this, though, is recognising the importance of social care alongside health. Health obviously very important and deservedly get a lot of credit for a lot of good work. But social care and social services do a huge amount of both preventative and support work as well. And so I'm hoping that through all this difficult time, actually some of that recognition comes through. And then with my finance portfolio hat on, hoping then that recognition happens through financial support as well. We say time and time again that places like Conway have one of the oldest populations in the world, and we've been banging that drum for a long time, and we've always thought and will continue to think that our older people deserve that financial support as much as the next person. And so we just hope that Welsh Government and UK Government listen to that and the importance of making sure that things like social services are supported properly. Staff and thank them for the good work they've done from one year to the next. I'll stop my little ramble. We had some recommendations. Let me just pull the report there. So it's the recommendations on top of page 145 that we note the annual report and continue to support the local authorities' improvement journey in providing services to people in their area. So that was proposed by Cheryl. I guess it was seconded by Louise. I'm not sure if I picked it up, but I'll go with that. All in favour then? Oh, there we are. Thank you very much. Okay, good. I think there's still a couple of seconds of delay, but it's workable. We can do this. Okay, good stuff. Let's move on to item number 13, which is the Tanlan Community Centre Old Colwyn from the Economic Development Portfolio. Let me just pull that up in front of me here because I'll be presenting this one. This is pages 230.
Could I leave, please, Leader? Could I be excused for a few minutes? Thank you.
Please do. Thanks, Cheryl. We'll find a way of getting in touch with you to come back into the meeting.
Thank you.
A smoke signal. We could try that. Because Councillor Gronwy is presenting apologies today, I'll just walk us through the report for the Tanlan Community Centre. So this starts at page 230 of your pack. I can see that Marianne's here as well as the lead officer I think Ellen's here as well, I saw earlier. If we've got any questions or comments at all on this item. But just reading through the report there, point 1.1, as it says, the Tanland Tenants and Residents Association currently lease the Tanland Community Centre, managed by our service here in Conway, the Community Development Service. The tenants, unfortunately, have dissolved their committee, and after numerous efforts to recruit new members, there's no new interest in continuing that independent community provision at Tanland in Old Cohen. It says at 1.4, there's been some early informal consultation with some disposal options. I've seen the investment required outweigh any value to find a commercial operator. So basically the condition of the building is such that there is, if it's to continue in some sort of use, it does require quite a significant investment. It says there at 1.5 that community engagement has teased out a few other community-based organisations and charities who declared an interest in taking the lease on the site. A number of those organisations were approached. However, leasing to a community group has not materialised due to the investment required in the building itself. So I'm confident and comfortable that our officers have done as much as they can within the sort of financial constraints to find a solution with the building as it is today. 1.6 highlights that there's been some interest by a registered social landlord in the site due to the location and the existing social housing network in the immediate area. So those discussions form part of the recommendation today. So as the Resident Association and the community group there has dissolved itself, the recommendation is to approve the early termination of the lease at the site, and then secondly to allow officers to develop a future strategy alongside a registered social landlord, which would include an element of community facility. There's lots more detail in the report, and in particular the engagement and consultation with the local members. I can see that Councillor Bryan wants to make a comment in a moment as well, and the consultations there with the portfolio holder, Councillor Gronway as well, all of which are supportive of the proposals set out in the report. So I'll leave it there. I will propose that we move the recommendations as outlined at paragraph 2122. I'll get a seconder in a moment, but let's listen to Councillor Bryan, and then we'll go from there. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I won't keep you. You've put forward the report very well. I just wanted to take the opportunity of thanking Jane and Bethan in CDS Services, who worked very closely with the committee to try to find alternatives, as have the youth service, social services, and Cartrevi Conway. So it's not something that we're doing lightly. A lot of work has gone on to try to make this a viable building and a viable community facility, and it just is not viable. The outgoings far outweigh the incomings, and if it wasn't for COVID and the fact that we got a community centre grant from Welsh Government, I don't know into which civil court we will be probably sitting at the minute, because it is as dire as that. So I hope that, Leader, that you will follow the recommendations that you've just moved. But can I just ask that 2.2 perhaps be amended a little, because it rather ties the hands of officers that they work with a future strategy alongside an RSL. Can somewhere along there be added the word including working alongside, just in case another different opportunity arises that they wish to take up?
No, good point. Thanks for that. I have no harm at all in just amending that within the proposal. So just to be clear on what my proposal now is then, is to allow officers to develop a future strategy, including with an RSL if appropriate, which would include an element of community facility.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I say
yeah.
I've been treasurer of this thing for 30 years, and it's quite destroying, you know, to have to come to you and ask to accept the surrender of a lease from what used to be a very, very well used facility.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brian. Thanks. I'm sure to the work you've put into this, and I'm sure there's others over the years who've sat on that committee, and we all know what it's like. We all know what it's like.
You know, Cheryl has been on it for years as well. You know,
yeah,
we're just at the end of our tether.
Understand it completely. So thank you to you. And you know, we sit on community groups and you know associations, organisations for the betterment of our community, and it's sad when these things come to an end. So, but we've got to move this one forward, which I know you appreciate as well. Let's go to Councillor Charlie. See your hand there, and then we'll come to Chris. Thanks.
Thanks, Leader. I was just going to add my thanks to Brian and Cheryl for all the work we've done. It can be a really thankless task. I'm happy to second the recommendations and agree with Brian that there should be a degree of flexibility there, but it always seems increasingly difficult for me for community groups to access funding for capital for repairs and things. You know, you can manage your day-to-day outgoings, but when the roof goes or the windows go or the boiler goes, it becomes a real problem. Most grant streams tend to be for new things, not just for repairing what you've got, but clearly we've got a building here which is coming to the end of its useful life, and you know that we look forward to finding something that's going to be positive for the community moving forward. So again, just to have my thanks and have my support for the recommendation.
Great, thank you. I'll take that as a second then to thanks Councillor Charlie, and then Councillor Chris Cater, please.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie said what I was going to say. Just a lot of sympathy to Councillors Brian and Cheryl over this. I think others of us, county councillors, are involved with village halls and community centres where we're continually saying, look, use it or lose it. There are costs here, and if we don't get the users in, you know, they become financially unviable, and really, you know, it's a shame that this one has come to this this situation. And full sympathy. I'm sure you've done everything you can to have kept it going. But yes, if the support is not there in the community, the users aren't there, it's better that we take this option. So I'm fully supportive of the conclusions of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. I can't see anybody else indicating to speak, so I'm happy to move through the proposals then. So the proposals, as outlined in the report, with that slight adjustment to the second one, which gives the latitude to work with other organisations if that's appropriate or necessary. Whatever wording I used earlier, I'm sure Sean will remember it well. That's been proposed on me, seconded by Councillor Charlie. All in favour of that then, please? That's great, thank you very much. Could somebody just message... Thanks, Brian. Could someone message Cheryl for me, please, just to invite her back into the meeting? I won't wait for Cheryl. I'm sure she won't mind too much. We're going to move on to item 14, which is the Environment and Transportation portfolio. Councillor Cheryl back with us. Well done, very good. And it's the Household Waste Recycling Centre contract extension, pages 237 to 241. And Councillor Greg, if I could ask you to walk us through this one, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yep, thank you, Leader. Right, in 2017, we set up a concessions contract to operate our household waste recycling centres. This was awarded to Bryson Recycling Limited for initially 2 years, with contract running to the 1st of August 17, with an option to extend by a further year, and then the option to extend again, and this is exercised in July 2019. However, this year, the Council has commenced informal discussions with Denbighshire County Council regarding a joint procurement of household recycling services with potential for operational, financial and customer benefits. In order to fully explore and implement this opportunity, an extension of 12 months to the existing contract is requested, to provide a new expiry date of 31st of July 2021, together with approval for a collaboratively procured new household waste recycling centre contract with Conway County Borough Council and Denbighshire County Council to be effective from the 1st of August 2021. Denbighshire's this lines us up with Denbighshire for the finishing of the contract. We've had quite a few informal, now more formal discussions with Denbighshire. I'll see if we get the approval today to move forward. We will push this forward, and it potentially gives us a lot of overview for savings in the future, and also better services for some of our customers who sit near to borderlines and may have to drive further distances, and gives us benefits in carbon reduction, waste recycling, mass loading, gives us much more potential moving forward. If anybody's got any questions, I'm pleased to answer them.
Thanks, Greg. So I'm really pleased to see that close working with our neighbours there in Denbighshire. And seems just absolute sense to, we just need a bit more time to get a better solution. Let's make sure we have that time to come up with the right thing, rather than just rushing something along for the sake of it. But let's see if anybody's got any further comments or questions on any of that at all. Nope, that seems very satisfactory then. So let's get a seconder to the proposal from Councillor Gregg then, which is proposal 2.1.
Well, Leader, if I can make the recommendations formally that we support 2.1, the household recycling centre contract with Brighton be extended by 12 months to 31st of July 2021, and 2.2, that the approach of Conway CBC jointly procuring with Denbighshire County Council a new household waste recycling centre contract to commence on the 1st of August 2021 is approved. I propose.
Okay, thanks, Greg. That's proposed by Councillor Gregg then. Is there a seconder for that, please? I can see Mark seconded that. Thank you. And all in favour then, please? Okay, good stuff. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, item 15 is for us to consider passing a resolution under the provisions of section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 to exclude the public and press from the meeting during consideration of the items outlined below. So someone would like to propose that we move that as Councillor Charlie. Someone like to second that, please? Thanks, Gemma. Before I move to the vote, let's go. Councillor Chris has got a comment I think he wants to make here. Chris?
Yeah, I just wondered why this was confidential, because as we understand it, the decision has already been made. It was part of the budget process earlier this year. The groups themselves have already had the information articulated to them and are aware of the impact that it will have on them. There seems to be no reason why this remains confidential, because the community groups already know, and if anyone decided to forensically examine our accounts, as some have in the past, it would be there for them. So it just doesn't seem to gel that this would then be confidential at this stage.
All right, thanks, Chris. I assume, because there's 5 items under here, I think you're talking about 17.1, is it social care?
Yeah, that's, sorry, yes, that's the, apologies.
Right.
I'm fiddling between screens between that and my other screen to read the agenda, but yes.
Right, another feeling. So this was exempt at the scrutiny committee, wasn't it, as well? And let me just pull up the exempt form, which outlines exactly why this is being proposed to be exempt. I'm not sure if Della's here in the meantime, who could comment on it from that side at all.
Sorry, having problems unmuting. Yeah, I looked at the exemption form and it mentioned that it's got the financial information about the various organisations in there. From what I can make out, but Jenny might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, it's only the financial information of the amount of assistance that we're giving them, as opposed to any further financial information about the organisations themselves. So as with all items which are put forward as potentially exempt, it's up to members really whether or not you want to discuss it in an open forum or whether you want it to be classed as exempt and discuss it confidentially. I think it might be as well to take Jenny's view on it, you know, why it was considered that this was put forward to be considered as an exempt item. What I wouldn't like to happen is that it goes back to some of the organisations and creates more disquiet for them, really.
Okay, thanks, Dallas. Jenny, can you comment, please, from your side?
Yeah, I think it is a sensitive report. I'm not sure that every organisation would know each other's. You're right, Dallas, it is our contributions, not their full accounts. And this is about our next step in the phase of consultation. So whilst providers are aware of our sort of direction of travel, they won't be aware of this detail at this stage. I think the budgetary reports had a very high level of information when it went through earlier in the year. So I think it's just seeing the providers listed with amounts next to them we consider to be sensitive.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. So that's information which is obviously really useful for our decision now. Anybody else got any comments or questions on that at all? No. Okay, so there's been a proposal that we do have those 5 items as exempt, and it has been seconded. There's no counter proposal I can see. So I'm going to go ahead with the vote on that proposal, and that those 5 items continue to remain exempt from press and public. So that's all in favour of that, then, please. Great, thank you very much. So we'll end this part of the meeting here. I think members and officers will have a link to the next part of the meeting, so just take a moment to transfer over to that one. Thank you, everybody.